I'd like to introduce Jesse Eng. Jesse is a biologist at the Aquarium of the Bay, where I get to volunteer as a scuba diver, and he's responsible for both the octopus exhibit and jellyfish, as well as a number of other animals there. So when I volunteer there, he gets to field my random questions about octopuses, and he is also a fantastic underwater photographer. And you can see the photo that he took of one of the red octopuses in the aquarium here. And Jesse, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. And I'll just leave it over to you to have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, as Sam said, I am.
Oh, Jesse
Sorry, I
muted
muted.
herself.
Yeah, can you hear me now? We're good. All right, thanks, guys. I'm so happy to be here talking to all the Octopus fans. I've been having the honor of working with octopuses for about a year and a half now, so not super long. Uh, I generally like to tell people I work with animals that have more than 8 arms or tentacles only. So that's octopuses, jellyfish, anemones, lots of invertebrates. Um, but yeah, at the Aquarium of the Bay, I work specifically with red octos. Their full names are Eastern Pacific red octopuses. I kind of think of them as like the kind of underrated younger sibling of all the California species that we get around here. They are pretty small. You can find them in the rocky intertidal. You can find them in kelp forests. They range from Alaska all the way down to Mexico. They, yeah, and they're part of our collection where we can display them to the public. They're pretty small. I do have some pictures. Let me share some pictures so you have some reference. Can you all see that? Yeah. One way you can tell reds from a lot of other octopuses that we have, especially around California, one, they're really small. So if you see a small octopus, it's most likely not a giant Pacific. They do have these 3 little eyelets under their eye. That's another indication it's a red octopus. And yeah, even though they're small, they have just as much personality and intelligence as any other octopus would. They're really cool to hang out with. I get to watch them pretty much all day long. They get a lot of different things in their enclosures, so we keep them busy at all times. We give them enrichment items. For those who don't know what enrichment items are, enrichment is a very common thing throughout aquariums and zoos. It's a way to give a stimuli or stimulus for animals. It gives them choices and changes to their environment. It also helps with their ability to practice natural behaviors. So, for example, we have, let me click my picture. In their exhibit, they might have clamshells they can hide in. They might have bottles that they can also hide in. We also give them little doggy balls, or I don't know what you call them, little like hex dog balls. I will generally have one that's stuffed with food, and they can try to take the food out of it, kind of like a puzzle, kind of indicating like if they were out hunting and looking through rocks, using their tentacles and their arms to feel around, to smell around, to kind of explore if there's any food around in their area. Let's see. I'll also give them bottles. You might have seen some videos of food in a bottle for octopuses, like maybe having a crab in there. Since these guys are so small, I don't put crabs in the bottles because the crabs would be the size of them most likely. So we'll put like pieces of krill or pieces of clam in there. And I have these little bottles that are built with these little punctured holes in them where they can stick their tentacles in. and smell around. And unfortunately, they aren't able to take the food out if they're going through the small holes. They would have to take it from the top of the bottle. So it's kind of like a smaller puzzle for them to figure out. And then if we ever get more advanced, I'll put a cap on it and they have to figure out how to unscrew the cap. I am also a huge fan of Legos and giving them Legos. Legos are a great texture for them to explore, especially in their environment. Sometimes we'll have gravel. Currently, they're in a sandy environment, which is more natural for them. But things like Legos or rubber or even my hand are great ways for them to interact with if they're interested in those things. There's one with my hand. One of our current octopuses, one of my volunteers named Milkshake. This is Milkshake. Her default color is usually a whitish color, but because she's interacting freely with my hand, we do this every morning. She comes up wanting some food. She changes color. And those who don't know much, or if you're kind of just starting to learn about octopuses, they are super smart. They have the ability to have personalities and emotions based off of their surroundings. So interacting with a simple thing like my hand or maybe a ball or a food item, they change colors, indicating they're thinking or indicating if there's danger, which we don't do at the aquarium. But out in the wild, they use those colorations, you probably already know, to camouflage and to hide in their environment. So do I have another picture? I think that's my last picture. But yeah, if you want to look up close, this is like one of my enrichment items I was talking about. One I don't have in my photos is this little tube. Same thing. You can see the little holes in it. It's just a little plastic tube. Sometimes it's a little difficult for them to figure out there's big holes at the end. And sometimes they already know that. So to make it a little difficult, I'll put in a little Lego piece that has like a little food maybe right here. And they have to figure out how to push this Lego piece in and out to get their food out. So even though these guys are probably about the size of your hand, maybe a little smaller depending on their age, they can lift these different pieces pretty easily. You can definitely feel the strength of their arms and their ability to explore around. So all these things, their personalities, their emotions, they're all hand in hand based off of their surroundings and what they see and what they're eating and what they're engaging with. I think that is all I got. But yeah, I'm happy to share. If there's any questions that anyone has about octopuses in maybe the setting that I work in or anything that I talked about, maybe about enrichment or personalities, I'm happy to answer those as well.
I have a question.
Or are we doing
Jesse.
questions at the end?
My question is, what initially got you fascinated with octopus? Like, what's your "this animal is incredible" moment?
Yeah, well, kind of a funny story. I originally didn't come on as a biologist to take care of octopuses. This is an exhibit that I had inherited, but I was like, oh heck yeah, I'll inherit this exhibit. Like, there's only one cephalopod in our building right now, and that's the red octos. And it's been a super learning moment that I've been able to gather, and I love learning. That's part of it. I also love going tide pooling. For those who don't know, when it's super low tide, especially like during this time when there's king tides going on, you can go out to the tide pools, and I've been lucky enough to find them under rocks and kind of just see them in their natural habitat. And it's one of those things where a lot of people don't know that you can actually find these guys like right offshore. They're right there. They're very common. I'd say they're probably the most common octopus you would find in at least around California. compared to obviously GPO or even a two-spot octopus. But because they're also a master of disguise, you have to know where to look and know what you're looking at. I'm sure I've missed dozens every time I tide pool, but yeah, it's one of those things where when I go tide pooling, when I'm out by the ocean, I'm always keeping my eye out for them because they're really cool.
Awesome. I think, okay, yeah, great. Thank you, Chelsea. So Q&A doesn't seem to be working, or it wasn't working beforehand. So if you just drop questions into the chat and we will pick them up. Chelsea asks, Jesse, what's the lifespan of a red octopus?
Yeah, the red octopus lives to be about 2 years, in the wild. When they're kept in captivity, they live a little longer than that. It's actually really hard to tell their age when we get them. We assume they're adults already because generally they're fully grown. So the general consensus is about 2 years.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's see. Oh, great. Thank you for the questions, folks. Natalia asked, what would happen if an octopus didn't have enrichment? Like, why is that important to their captivity?
Yeah, enrichment is a very important piece, not just to octopuses, but to all animals kept in captivity, even like for your pets, like your dogs, your cats. You give them bones to chew on, you take them on walks. That's all enrichment to them. It's all ways to get them engaged. But if there weren't any enrichment for octopuses, it's kind of hard to tell what would happen. It would mean, like, for example, I would just be dropping food in. They would probably hide behind rocks more often. I will say this, every octopus is different. So I've had some octopuses just hide all the time and refuse enrichment. And that's totally fine. That is their choice. So there are times when I do have to go looking for them because I need to make sure they are okay. So I will take my hands and lift up each rock to see, are you under there? Are you under here? And sometimes they just want to be left alone. So for octopuses, it just, yeah, it depends. I would say they would probably just go into hiding. They'd probably be less engaged with people in general.
So they kind of have to learn to be social in a way. This is not a question, but I'm just describing, like, I've seen Jesse's been like introducing those enrichment toys to them like step by step, because it's not like they know how to pull a Lego out of a bottle right from the get-go. Like there's you can actually like watch them learning over time, which is pretty fascinating. Jesse, we have time, I think, for like maybe one more question. Let's see. A couple of people have asked how big the octopuses are, which I think you covered. They are like, I don't know, they can get pretty big. You can describe how.
Yeah, I like fully grown. If you take their one arm to another arm, they're about like roughly 20 inches, 15 to 20 inches fully grown. Their mantle, which is their head piece, it's probably a couple inches long. I would say definitely. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe because they can shrink and expand at will. But when fully stretched out, arm to arm, I'd say almost 2 feet if they're fully grown.
And how big are their babies?
Their babies? How big are their babies? Is that what the
Yeah, the
question?
eggs.
Well, all octopus babies, from my knowledge, they all start out kind of as a plankton animal, so they're very small in general, because they're feeding off of other planktonic species like baby crabs, baby zoas, and whatnot. So they start out pretty small. I've had one or two females lay eggs in an exhibit. These eggs are not fertilized, but the eggs are like less, probably about a millimeter big, tall.
Thank you all for the questions. Thank you, Jesse, for your time and sharing your expertise. This is super cool.